time, he wasn't even born. And his great aunt told us the story about who he was, you know, Tawera, who Tawera was. She said in time to come, he'd be known right around the world throughout, you know, his career, whatever he do, wherever he goes. It's been his destiny.
Tawera is without doubt, I think, has got more mana than any sports person I've ever run into, and you know, I just think he's one of the best human beings I've ever met. So from a football perspective, yeah, he was good, but from a person perspective, mate, he's one of the best blokes on the planet.
Oh, how beautiful from Tawera Nikau.
Nikau with a good run.
That's a great effort by Tawera Nikau.
The Iron Man.
What a trainer from Tawera Nikau. He really is my man of the match so far.
Little short kick through there was well read by Nikau.
And he's been playing like that all season.
Heavy tackle again from Nikau. Punishing stuff from both sides. Slams it down. Nikau on his back. Nikau this time won't be denied, will he?
Tu anu o te one tapu o te mātua tūpuna. Turu anu au, he horoha, he tohu maumahara, he tohu whakapapa, he taonga tuku iho e pupuri nei, a tihei Māori ora. Te ui Māori, toi tū te rangatiratanga, toi tū te tiriti. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege and an honour to be here this evening. I just want to acknowledge my previous kai kōrero. Tonight we've been posed with the question of how, for us as Māori, do we navigate the high performance sport? What do we do? How is that position for us? And how have we managed to overcome those challenges? We've heard from our kai kōrero tonight, the challenges, how they've overcome them, and what they've done. Tonight I want to share my story, talk a little bit about my upbringing, and my connection in terms of Māori and how that has helped me navigate my career and the stuff that I'm doing today. And if you look back, I really want to talk about that video. In that video clip, my mum talked about a kuia or aunt, a nana of mine, my nana morohete, and hopefully this is my nana who I was brought up with. She was a matakite, she was a sia. Before I was even born, I was in the womb of my mother. She came up and talked about who I was, what I would do, where I would go. So the moi a of our tūpuna, of my whaia, my nana morohete, and when I was born, I had another name. Like most Māori and Pacifica, we have several names. Is that right? Most of us do. And the name that I had was Nui Ia. When I was born, on my birth certificate today, in my passport, Nui Ia in Māori means New Year's. I was born on New Year's Day. So that is my proper name on my passport, my driver's license and everything else. But when I was born with my mum and dad, my kuia, au moro, my nana, came along, knocked on the door at our whare, haere ki te mokopuna, haere ki te kāinga, haere ki te with her. So from the age of about 2, I was taken and had to go and live with my nana in this old house that had a dirt floor and a coal range. Does anyone know what a coal range is? I don't think any of you young people would know what a coal range stove was. So from a very young age, I had to go and live with my nana for probably about 5 or 6 years. I never went to school, and I was brought up at our papa kāinga at Matahuru, where I live today. And I was very privileged and humbled to be brought up in the era, in the 70s and the 80s, in the Waikato, in the era of the kingitanga. And for us, and if there's any Waikato there, we know that, you know, what happened with us in our whenua, and there was paukai, there was koroneihana, there was regatta, tangihana, but spending the early days of my life with my nana really installed this sense, the spiritual sense, this wairua, and probably for me it was that taha wairua that's held me in good esteem through my whole life and everything that I've been able to achieve. So going back to my nana moro in terms of that, and one of my other nanas would come and visit us all the time. There's a picture of my other nana here, my nani nā, ka hiketia wiri ana. when she passed away, she was 126 years old. This old lady, she would come and sit with my nana, and I would be sitting there, getting up every morning as a youngster, chopping the wood, lighting the fire, hanging out with these old kuia. And it was a very special time for me. It was a time of being able to listen to their kōrero, a time of understanding what they were talking about, because the reo and the wairua and the spiritual connection that they talked about was from another generation, and something that I don't think a lot of people understand in terms of that. So the early days of my lives were spent with these kuia, spent with my nanas, understanding and talking about the old ways, but also talking about what the future was going to be in terms of that. So I was very privileged, I was very honored to spend the time with these old people and taught in the skills and learned a lot from a very, very young age. So that wairua, that spirit, that moi moi a, the vision, and we talk about vision, and there's three things that's been really constant in my life, and one of them was having that vision. What is the vision? Where do you want to be going? How are you going to get there? And I think learning from these old people and their ways, and their kōrero, the karakia, the whanaungatanga, the manaakitanga, all those tangas that we all grew up with. And as I said before, being in the Waikato, that was a big part of us. We were still dealing with the confiscation of our land. We were still dealing with what had happened to us in terms of everything that I'd grown up with. So from a very young age, I had this real spiritual connection, this taha wairua that held me to my true north in terms of everything that I was doing. Everything that's happened to me in my life was predicted by these old people here. So when you have tupuna that can see way, way, way past the future, way, way, way past from you, there is a different connection in terms of that. I want to go on and talk a little bit about having that moi moi a, having that vision. When I was a young kid growing up, when they both passed away, I went to live back with my mum and dad in terms of that. And I had a bit of a vision. I wanted to be an All Black. I was black anyway, but I wanted to be an All Black as a young fella growing up. And I had the opportunity to go through that. I ended up playing the Kiwis, playing rugby league, and got to travel all around the world. But having that vision and things installed by our tupuna was very, very important to me. The second part of this is, and I want to talk about leadership, because I want to talk about, this is my dad, old Nika Putere, my father, and he was a fantastic leader. My dad, and he's been gone 20 years now. Only reason I know that because one of my daughters she was born when he passed away in terms of that stuff. So I know she's been 20 this year. My dad's been gone nearly 20 years. But he was a great leader. He was someone that really inspired us and motivated us. But more importantly, really talked about stepping into that leadership position. So for a lot of us, sometimes we don't think we can step up. But I know my dad was someone that really had some strong values, brought up in this whānau environment, brought up in this being awhi, being manakied by his aunties and everything. But for me, my dad and my uncle had a contracting business. 7 boys in our family. My uncle had 5 girls. Guess who did all the work when all the contracts were given out? Who did all the haymaking? Who did all the scrub cutting? Who did all the fencing? And I remember one holidays, my dad, I went up to him, and I'd just turned 14, 15, a teenager. All my mates were going to the beach, were heading off, going overseas and doing all these different things. But we had to do haymaking, we had to do fencing, we had to do scrub cutting. I remember going to my dad one day and I said, "Oh, Dad, how come we have to work all the time?" And he said to me, "Son, you'll never get anywhere in life unless you're prepared to work hard." And that's a really good lesson that I took from my dad at a really young age. He taught me about work ethic. What was it like? And I'd seen my dad and my uncles and my family growing up working in the gardens, because our papakainga where I live now used to be a collective of all our maraes in our area. Everyone would come and they would work together, they would do the gardens. Then they would go to our next marae, they would work together, they would do the gardens. This was all in support of the kingitanga, for all of us collectively working together in terms of everything that we would do. And learning that from a really young age really gave me a really good grounding in being successful in some of the other things that I've done in terms of that. And I want to share a story. Mātai talked about the 99 grand final. And I remember playing in the grand final. We won the grand final. We were down in the changing sheds after the game. My dad comes in. My mum and dad had come to the game. We were down there having a beer. And the number one badge holder, we played St. George, the Melbourne Storm. We were losing at half-time by 14-0. I had a good game in the second half. We won the match. And I was having a beer with my dad standing there in the change sheds after the game. And the Prime Minister at the time was a guy called John Howard, Prime Minister of Australia, and he was the number one supporter for the St. George Dragons. Comes down into the changing sheds, comes and shakes my hand. He said, "Mr. Nikau, what a fantastic game. If you weren't playing today, my team might have won." And my dad was there. And I said to my dad, I said, "Oh, Dad, not too bad, eh? The old Prime Minister comes down and shakes your hands and say you had a good game." And I turned around, my old man turned around, and he said to me, "Oh, yep, but remember the time when I left you in jail when you were 15 years old and taught you a lesson?" Nothing like me old man to really keep you grounded, eh? Really, really good at keeping you grounded and making sure that your feet were still firmly on the ground. So I just want to talk about some of the challenges that I've been through, and I've been through a lot, on and off the field. But I want to share one story, and this happened to me when I was playing in England. I think it was about 1994. I was playing for an English team called Castleford. That team there in the yellow jersey. You would have seen me with a mullet there. In 1994, there was a movie that came out in New Zealand. Does anyone know what that movie was? It was premiered in New Zealand. It was a big movie in New Zealand. Anyone have a guess what the movie was? Once Were Warriors was a movie that came out. I was playing in England at the time, and I had a mullet, and I looked like all those fellas that were in the movie. True story. True story. All those fellas, and in particular, I looked like one fella, Nig Hike, because he had a mullet just like that. And I remember we were playing in the finals. It was a cup final game. And I think we might have been playing Wigan in the final. And then at the start of the games, they would have the dignitaries come out and shake your hands. And usually it would be, we played at Wembley, and it was the royal box, so they would have the royal family come down. And the Queen wasn't there to stay. It was a cousin of the Queen's. I think it was a guy, the Duke of Gloucester or someone was there. They would come and shake everybody's hand before the match and do the dignitary stuff. And I remember him coming up to me, shaking my hand. The captain was our guy called Lee Crooks. He introduced me. I shook the Duke's hand. And he said to me, "Hey, you look like that guy straight out of that movie." What do you think I said to him? Anyone have a guess? Do you know what I said to him? I said, "You know what? If you would have said to my tupuna, they would eat you." That's exactly what I said to him. True story. And this was still prior to our settlement with Tainui, because we didn't settle till 1995. So in terms of that stuff, so I just wanted to share that story because we talk about some of the challenges and the perceptions that we have as Māori, how we are viewed across the world. Now, what does that actually look like in terms of that? So one, I had this great upbringing with my kuia, with my nani morohete and my nani nā. I had some great leadership from my father, one of the many leaders that I've had. But the third and the most important reason why I've been successful and continue to be successful to this day, right now, is because of the whānau that I have. Everyone around me that supported me, from my family to our marae, to our hapu, to our iwi. You know, there's a saying, he aha te mea nui o te ao, what is the most important thing in the world? It is people, it is people, it is people. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. And on the back of my tupuna, on the back of our ancestors, the reason why I continue to be successful today is because I still have that support. So to all our whānau here tonight, you can't do it on your own. And we've heard from all our kai kōrero tonight what they've achieved, and it's because of the people all around us. So I really want to acknowledge all my whānau. It is really, really important in terms of this. So mihi atu kia koutou, nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.